The story begins in the 7th biosphere, where the city of Liang is suddenly attacked. A sharp warning siren echoes throughout the entire city, causing people to panic and scramble to find shelter. Moments later, countless blazing meteors pour down from the sky, like a rain of fire-carrying destruction. Yet amid the burning scenery, one strange object stands out, an azure blue crystal, completely untouched by flames. The blue crystal hurtles downward at incredible speed, as if it has a specific target within the chaos of the city. In the blink of an eye, it crashes directly into the body of a young man. The violent impact makes him spit out blood. Before he can even recover, the crystal slowly sinks into his heart, and a mysterious energy begins to pulse inside his body. The scene shifts to the present, where many students have gathered at the school's training ground. In front of them, a man delivers a speech, explaining that the students' only hope of becoming elite martial artists in the future is to enter the Hongji class. The instructor explains that the placement exam is modeled after the college entrance examination and consists of two parts: a written academic test and a martial arts assessment. The total score is 750 points, 225 points for academics and 525 points for the martial exam. He hopes everyone will apply what they have learned and answer carefully. He emphasizes forcefully, almost shouting, that only the top 10 students in the overall ranking will be able to enter the Hongxi class. After that, he announces that the academic exam is about to begin and orders everyone to enter the exam hall in an orderly manner. As Chen prepares himself, his mind is crystal clear. This is his chance to become a martial artist. He recalls his first year of high school, when he suddenly lost consciousness and fell into a coma. Out of concern for his health, his parents were forced to apply for 2 years of medical leave for him. Now, he knows that this is his final opportunity. He must seize it at all costs. While walking toward the exam hall, he is suddenly struck hard by another man. It turns out to be a group of bullies, and their leader, standing in the center, arrogantly asks whether Chen is really planning to take the exam. The man mockingly says that anyone can dream of entering the Hongji class, but Chen, who has been on leave for 2 years since his first year, still dares to participate in the examination. With a frightening smile and reddened eyes, the bully stretches out his hand as he speaks. He says that this kid truly has guts, getting sick, taking 2 years of leave, and now directly charging into the Hongji class exam. Does he really think he is some kind of genius? Before the bully can touch him, Chen immediately grabs the man's hand with his own palm, gripping it tightly with tremendous strength. Coldly, he says that he appreciates the concern, but the man should worry more about how he himself is going to pass his own exam. After that, Chen turns around and walks away without hesitation. One of the bullies comments that Chen was obviously bullied back in his first year, yet now he has become so arrogant. What if they teach him a lesson after the exam? Their leader stops them. In his mind, he has already noticed that the boy's grip strength is far from ordinary. He scolds his companions, asking if they have no brains at all. If they are caught now, they will definitely be disqualified. It would be better to wait for the martial exam later. With a sinister smile, he thinks that if he, accidentally, cripples Chen during the exam, no one would be able to complain. Chen is now seated at his desk. He looks at the question on the screen, which requires a short answer. Describe the current state of the world and the first day of the High Martial Calendar. This is common knowledge, so he immediately begins answering. He recalls that in the year 2842 of the Old Era, a civilization from another world was discovered and launched an invasion of Earth. Humanity retaliated with nuclear weapons, but after 2 years, they were completely defeated in the war. More than 5 billion lives were lost under global nuclear radiation. Amid the catastrophe, humans broke through the limits of their bodies and began to evolve. On August 27, in the year 2860 of the Old Era, the life intensity of all adults reached level 2. That day marked the end of the Old Era and the beginning of a new age, the first day of the High Martial Calendar. The second question concerns key figures who made major contributions during the First War of the High Martial Era. The third question discusses the erroneous policies proposed by various countries regarding the restoration of world order. After answering all the questions, he immediately submits the exam. He rubs his head, looking somewhat dejected, but in truth, he is thinking that, as expected, his score should be perfect. He was never actually in a coma for 2 years. Instead, due to a mysterious injury, he repeatedly entered a strange space. The rewards he obtained there awakened his mental power and granted him a photographic memory. Thus, even though he had not attended school for 2 years, his confidence remained intact. Unfortunately, the total score for academics is only 225 points. He still needs to prepare thoroughly for the martial arts exam. After class, he returns home and informs his father that he is back. His father replies that it is perfect timing and dinner is already ready. As Chen walks toward his father, a piece of paper falls from his pocket. His mother picks it up and scolds him for being too clumsy, reminding him to make sure he does not lose his exam administration ticket. At the dining table, his father lays out the dishes. After a moment, he places something on the table and asks Chen if he knows what it is. Chen is shocked to recognize it as qi blood powder. He immediately asks where his father got it. Instead of answering directly, his father smiles and says that since Chen is taking the Hongji class exam, he bought the qi blood powder to help improve his score. Chen says that he can pass even without it. His father places a hand on his shoulder and tells him not to worry. Even if he does not become a martial artist, the family can still support him. There is always a way to make a living. Hearing this, Chen smiles and nods. That night, Chen enters his room and sits on the bed. His thoughts are heavy. One bottle of qi blood powder costs 20,000, nearly draining the family's savings. In these times, if he does not become a martial artist, he cannot guarantee his family's safety. The outcome of tomorrow's exam depends on this very night. He begins to meditate. A blue flame forms in his palms, and his consciousness is drawn into another space, a frozen world surrounded by crystal. Moments later, monsters appear behind him. Since the time he fell into a coma, whenever he sleeps, he enters the crystal space. In this space, countless monsters exist with only one goal: to destroy the crystal, and his duty is to stop them. If the crystal is destroyed, he will fall into a coma again. But if he dies in battle while protecting it, he will immediately awaken in the real world, brimming with energy. At first, he was afraid to gamble with his life, so he repeatedly failed and fell into comas. Later, he discovered that dying in battle granted abundant energy. With each successful defense against a wave of monsters, his mental power increased slightly. As a result, his memory and comprehension became extraordinarily strong. After defeating a massive ape, notifications appear one after another, announcing that the next wave of monsters will arrive in 30 seconds. This is followed by a reminder that only the first successful defense grants rewards. One by one, he beheads the monsters with his sharp sword glowing with red energy. When it is over, he slowly walks away, leaving the corpses behind him. He lets out a sigh and opens his status panel. As he examines it, he realizes that his current stats are still not enough to enter the Hongshi class and become an elite martial artist. Immediately after, a notification appears announcing the arrival of the fifth wave of monsters. From the air, a gigantic red dragon appears, raging with fury, and immediately breathes out blazing flames. Chen dodges quickly, knowing full well that this is the monster's fire breath. Before he can regain his footing, it attacks again with its sharp claws. Seizing the opportunity, he leaps toward the dragon's arm. However, before he can climb up, the dragon suddenly strikes with a powerful tail sweep. He blocks it with his sword, spinning through the air until he lands above the monster. As blue energy envelops his entire body, he realizes that after experiencing countless deaths, he has finally mastered the dragon's attack patterns and rhythm. He unleashes the flowing light sword art, breeze in the forest. Wrapped in blue energy, he crashes downward and strikes the dragon directly in the abdomen. The dragon slams into the ground, letting out a scream of intense pain. Chen stands atop its body, gripping his trembling arm, thinking the monster might go berserk again. He made a brief miscalculation, but fortunately, he is not seriously injured. The dragon attacks once more, but he dodges swiftly. He forces himself to calm down, because he knows that this time, he will definitely win. After dodging, he jumped again and shot upward, landing directly on top of the dragon. He tried once more to attack the monster while gripping his sword tightly. However, the dragon seemed to anticipate his movement and immediately prepared to bite him. With a swift twist of his body, he narrowly avoided the danger. Before he could fully retreat, the dragon launched another attack, its strike nearly brushing his face. Even so, at extreme speed, he managed to evade it once again. What followed was the dragon's eruption of blazing flames, forcing him to retreat immediately. At that moment, he realized that no matter how powerful his opponent was, having a smaller body still came with advantages, one of them being speed. Using all his strength, he hurled his sword. It shot through the air at incredible speed, flying upward and striking the dragon squarely on the head. The monster let out a scream of intense pain as flames continued to pour from its mouth. He did not stop there. In an instant, he appeared behind the dragon and slashed down with all his strength, cutting from its head down along its back, shouting out his skill, drums and gongs beating loudly. After that, he thrust his sword with full force into the dragon's back. A burst of blue energy exploded, streaking upward into the sky and completely piercing through the monster's body. The dragon crashed to the ground with a thunderous boom. Yet even after it fell, he did not let his guard down. The protagonist unleashed another extremely powerful slash at the dragon's body. Then he left his sword embedded in the monster and stood silently behind it. At that moment, a notification appeared. It congratulated him. He had successfully defended against 5 waves of monster attacks, and as a result, his mental power level increased by 1. But that was not all. Another notification appeared. Because he had successfully completed 5 consecutive waves, he obtained the Void Immortal Visualization method. Chen was shocked. As for the increase in mental power, he had little to comment on, but a visualization method was a completely different matter. He recalled the explanation from before. A visualization method was an extremely rare technique that allowed one to actively cultivate mental power. Even if he could raise its level through system rewards, a method that could be used continuously was far more valuable. Another notification appeared, reminding him to prepare, as the next wave of monsters was approaching. Calmly, he turned around while catching his breath, then suddenly froze. His eyes widened as countless gigantic monsters came into view, each with glowing red eyes. The sight alone nearly overwhelmed him. It took him a moment before he fully opened his eyes again. He realized that all of them had higher life intensity levels than his, and there were far too many of them. It seemed he would not be able to pass this stage anytime soon. Because of this, he decided to temporarily set aside the battle and prioritize the visualization method. He took out the glowing book. Blue energy flowed out from it and streamed directly into his head. In an instant, he was transported into a strange dimension, standing alone and gazing upward. Before him was a terrifying existence, smiling, with small yet intensely red eyes. It was so enormous that he was no more than an ant by comparison, as if he could be crushed at any moment. As his body and face seemed to be suppressed by its presence, he suddenly understood. So this was why it was called a visualization method. All he needed to do was stare at the gigantic being. This was a trial. A mental trial. He remained in that state for several minutes. When his consciousness returned, he was already sitting on his bed, wrapped in a gentle blue energy. Moments later, the door to his room suddenly burst open. His younger sister called out to him, telling him that it was time to eat. Chen began changing his clothes, as his entire body was drenched in sweat from training. Jokingly, His sister said that he seemed more handsome now. Chen Du smiled and walked over, messing up her hair as he asked whether he had not always been handsome. His sister repeatedly nodded and begged him to stop messing with her hair. Her cheeks flushed red as she looked at her older brother. While looking in the mirror, Chen Du noticed changes in his body. Only then did he realize that this was likely the effect of the void immortal visualization method. After breakfast, he prepared to leave for the exam. He said goodbye to his father and younger sister. His father advised him to be careful on the way. The scene shifted to Liang City No. 1 High School Gymnasium. Chen Du was stretching while thinking about how effective the void immortal visualization method was. He could clearly feel improvements in every aspect of his body. Suddenly, he turned around when someone spoke behind him, calling him the genius. Chen Du, who had supposedly suspended his studies for 2 years. 3 teenage bullies stood in front of him, grinning, and their leader said that Chen Du had ranked dead last before taking leave. Did he really still have the nerve to participate in the Hongji class assessment? In a mocking tone, they asked whether the great philanthropist was here to take the very last spot. Chen Du replied seriously that it was still better than someone who could not even pass the academic subjects. One of the bullies flew into a rage and shouted, asking what he had just said. Chen Du merely smiled and replied that if he could not hear clearly, then he was not qualified to take the exam. The leader of the bullies was furious and warned him not to be too arrogant. Chen Du calmly replied that he had not named anyone. If it was not him, then there was no need to take it personally. Another boy stepped in to stop them, saying that the assessment was more important. If something happened and Instructor Ling arrived, they would lose much more. The bullies left in annoyance, but their leader threatened that he would come back for him later. The boy who intervened was nervous and said he was finished for sure, but Chen Du calmly said it was fine. The boy explained that Feng Rui was arrogant because his second uncle was the dean of student affairs. He also added that there were rumors that the dean had leaked the martial arts assessment questions to Feng Rui. Only then did Chen Du realize that he needed to be cautious of Feng Rui's schemes and those of certain teachers. Soon, it was announced that the martial arts assessment would be divided into a strength test and a combat duel. The examinees were split into groups of 10. Chen Du immediately lined up and told the boy behind him that the exam was about to begin. When they arrived at the strength test area, a massive device shaped like a giant bear stood before them, with the words, "Number 1, written on it. A last place elimination system was implemented. Everyone had to strike the sandbag with full force. The one with the lowest score would be eliminated. The boy beside Chen Du complained about the sandbag attack. The last place in each group would be eliminated immediately. He said the strength test this year was excessively unfair. Chen Du remained silent, thinking that there was still a combat duel afterward and that he needed to conserve his strength. Using his speed, he gathered power in his fist and prepared for a powerful punch. Meanwhile, Feng Rui arrogantly said that this was easy and that he still had plenty of strength left. When the assessment began, both Chen Du and Feng Rui prepared themselves with determination. Feng Rui attacked first. His punch was powerful, and the sound echoed loudly, delighting his followers. They even boasted that it had almost reached 1,400 jin in strength. They were certain that their boss would take first place and believed that someone would be eliminated in this round. However, the bullies suddenly broke into a cold sweat when they heard an even louder booming sound and saw the punching bag fly up into the air. Some of them cursed in shock, asking what was going on. They could not believe that it had reached 1,500 jin of punching power, and from someone with only unpassed 5.1 life intensity. They wondered which class Chen Du belonged to. Was he really that strong? Why was his name not in the top 50 of the batch last year? Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at Chen Du. The boy jumped up in excitement and shouted. This was exactly what he had expected from his big brother. In his heart, he could not help but wonder, since when had Chen Du become this overpowered? The teacher observing the exam could not help but think deeply. According to standard benchmarks, A life intensity of 5.1 corresponded to only about 1000 jin of punching force. Yet Chen Du had recorded 1500 jin. Even within the Hongji class, almost no one could achieve such a result. His doubts grew stronger. Could there really be such a monster coming from an ordinary class? The possibility that Chen Du possessed a martial skill crossed his mind, but he immediately dismissed it. Even that would not be enough to explain such a huge gap. He stopped dwelling on it and promptly instructed his assistant to retrieve Chen Du's file. After reviewing the records, he learned that Chen Du was a student from a regular class who had suspended his studies for 2 years. The file stated that his martial skill had reached Tier 1, 55% back then. However, the teacher was certain that Chen Du's current level was far higher. He decided that in the afternoon, he would closely observe Chen Du's true strength. After the strength test, the teacher stood at the center of the ring and loudly announced that the students whose names were called should step onto the stage for the combat duel. The first name called was Chen Du, followed by Feng Rui. The students were shocked. Even though Chen Du had only just returned to school, his score in the strength test was extremely high. Some wondered whether he had a chance of winning. However, others quickly replied that it was impossible. Feng Rui was bound to win. In real combat, martial skill was what truly mattered. Brute strength alone was not enough. At the center of the stage, as the two prepared, Feng Rui arrogantly told Chen Du not to think that just because he had beaten him before, things would be the same now. Chen Du smiled and, in a faintly mocking tone, replied that he hoped Feng Rui would still be able to remain arrogant later. Feng Rui moved immediately. He leapt forward and used his martial arts stops war, launching an extremely fast series of attacks. Chen Du calmly dodged each movement. He blocked the final strike with his sword. With just a few simple moves, he managed to land a hit, striking Feng Rui in the face and causing his nose to bleed. The force of the blow nearly knocked Feng Rui backward, sending him skidding across the floor. Feng Rui burned with rage. In his mind, he was the one who deserved to enter the Hongji class. His eyes reddened with fury as crimson energy enveloped his body. He launched another attack, the technique he called well-preserved reputation. Bursts of energy shot out in succession like threads, flying toward Chen Du. Chen Du dodged and blocked them one by one with his sword. Feng Rui leapt again and unleashed a powerful slash, shouting for Chen Du to die. Part of the stage was shattered by the force of the attack, yet Chen Du suffered only minor damage, barely more than a scratch. Chen Du realized that fighting a human was completely different from battling monsters in the crystal space. Feng Rui once again gathered energy in his hand and swiftly released a devastating blast. Chen Du met it head-on with his sword, which glowed with blue light. Their attacks collided, causing a violent explosion and a deafening shockwave that echoed through the area. Immediately after, Chen Du suddenly unleashed a flurry of attacks. Feng Rui was caught off guard. His weapon was nearly knocked from his hands. A powerful wave of blue energy swept past him. Behind Feng Rui, a leaf drifted gently downward, but in an instant, Chen Du sliced through it. That single slash inflicted severe damage on Feng Rui, and blood spurted out. Even so, Feng Rui refused to give up. He pulled out a dagger from his side and charged forward again, attempting to stab Chen Du. But before he could succeed, Chen Du delivered a heavy punch straight to his face. Feng Rui was sent flying off the stage, nearly losing consciousness. All the students were stunned. Some even wondered if they were dreaming. The boy accompanying Chen Du was completely dumbfounded. He never imagined that the dark horse would be his own big brother. The students behind them could hardly believe their eyes. Some cursed under their breath, while others whispered, asking whether Chen Du had taken drugs. The teacher immediately ordered the medical team to check on Feng Rui's condition, while instructing the next students to prepare for their duels. As Chen Du was about to leave, instructor Ling stopped him. Ling approached him, and Chen Du immediately bowed, explaining that he had been in a hurry earlier and had not fully controlled his strength, so he apologized. Instructor Ling smiled and said that injuries were normal in combat duels. He advised Chen to be more careful next time and not to forget to stretch after returning home, as it was obvious that he had exerted himself in the fight. Chen thanked him and left. As Instructor Ling watched him go, he thought to himself that Feng Rui had been utterly defeated, yet Chen did not have even a single visible injury, clearly the result of an overwhelming gap in martial skill. The teacher instructed Wang Kai to call the principal, who responded immediately. After that, Chen walked toward the virtual combat capsule. It was still early, and his father and younger sister had not yet returned home. In his mind, even though he did not have a permanent sparring partner, it was fortunate that the school had such facilities. By lying inside the capsule, he could be matched with martial artists of a similar level. Since he usually fought monsters in the crystal space, he had rarely used the virtual combat system, so his rank was still only bronze. He plugged the capsule into the outlet, thinking that Feng Rui's humiliation would definitely not end here. Feng Rui would likely send people to harass him and try to stop him from entering the Hongji class. He quietly sat down and activated the virtual capsule. Combat records here were automatically registered in the Blue Star Youth List, an official ranking used for college and transfer examinations, and a recognized list of geniuses across all ecospheres of the world. Even within the Hongji class, only a few students were on this list. Thus, if he could enter it, he would surely gain an opportunity to enter the Hongji class through sheer strength. Upon entering the virtual space, he immediately put on a mask. A pig mask. He appeared in a vast open area and looked around, wondering where his opponent was. He did not realize that the opponent was already above him. A voice spoke, saying that his reaction was too slow. A woman dropped down from above, holding 2 daggers, ready to attack. The chapter ends here. Watch out for our upcoming uploads. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you'll always be updated on our future videos.